The joke left my mouth before I had time to think about it. I was standing on the porch of my farmhouse in rural Virginia, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold, while Grace Parker stood a few feet away with a plate of homemade cinnamon rolls balanced in her hands. She was 34. I was 52. And after she teased me about living alone like a stubborn old ranch dog, I laughed and said, "I'd marry you if I were younger." I expected Grace to laugh. Instead, her smile slowly disappeared. Her fingers tightened around the plate, and she looked straight into my eyes before quietly saying, 7 words that made the whole world around me seem to stop. "Who told you? I wanted someone younger." Before I tell you what happened next, if you still believe in kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and the second chances life sometimes places right at our door, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind people there is still goodness in this world. My name is Nathan Brooks, and for most of my adult life, I believed a man was measured by how much he could carry without asking anyone for help. I had spent 26 years building a small furniture business outside Charlottesville. I worked with my hands, paid my bills on time, and rarely complained. My wife, Rebecca, had once told me that my greatest strength was also my greatest weakness. I knew how to endure almost anything, but I had no idea how to let anyone stand beside me while I endured it. After our marriage ended peacefully 8 years earlier, I buried myself in work. There was no betrayal, no screaming, and no terrible secret. We had simply become 2 polite strangers sharing a house. Rebecca moved to North Carolina, remarried years later, and genuinely wished me well. I told everyone I was happy for her. What I never admitted was that I had quietly decided love had already used up its chance on me. Then, Grace bought the neglected farm across the road. She arrived in a dusty pickup truck with 3 boxes of books, an old golden retriever named Moses, and enough optimism to irritate me immediately. She had left Richmond after spending 12 exhausting years working as an event coordinator, organizing beautiful celebrations for other people, while her own life felt increasingly empty. Her father had recently passed away, leaving her the small farm where he had grown up. Grace didn't come to Virginia searching for romance. She came because she needed silence, soil, and somewhere she could remember who she was. The first time we met, she knocked on my door because her kitchen sink was leaking. I fixed it in 20 minutes. The next morning, she brought me blueberry muffins. A week later, I repaired her fence. She left fresh eggs on my porch. Somehow, without either of us noticing, favors became conversations. Conversations became coffee, and coffee became the best part of my mornings. But I kept drawing an invisible line between us. Whenever Grace invited me to the farmer's market, I found an excuse. When she suggested dinner, I pretended I had paperwork. I saw the way she smiled when I walked across the road, and I felt something in myself waking up that I had worked very hard to keep asleep. Yet every time hope appeared, fear answered it. I imagined people whispering about our age difference. I imagined Grace waking up 10 years later and regretting choosing a man whose hair was already turning gray. Most of all, I feared believing I could have another life and then losing it. So that afternoon on the porch, I hid behind humor. "I'd marry you if I were younger," I said, laughing, and Grace's answer tore through every excuse I had carefully built. She set the cinnamon rolls on the porch table and told me she had spent most of her life choosing what looked correct from the outside. The right career, the right apartment, the right social circles, even the right kind of men. She said she was tired of letting imaginary strangers make decisions about her happiness. Then she told me something I hadn't expected. Her father had been 68 when he passed, and during his final months, he had admitted his greatest regret wasn't growing old. It was postponing joy because he kept waiting for life to become more convenient. Grace said she refused to inherit that regret. She wasn't asking me for promises or a wedding ring. She was only asking me to stop rejecting a future that hadn't even been given a chance. I didn't answer her that day. Fear still had its hands around me, but 3 mornings later, I woke before sunrise and saw Grace's farmhouse across the fields. Her kitchen light was glowing. For the first time, I realized how many mornings I had spent looking toward that light while pretending it meant nothing. I walked across the road carrying 2 cups of coffee. Grace opened the door wearing an old sweater, her hair tied carelessly behind her head, and surprise filling her face. I told her I couldn't promise to become fearless overnight. I couldn't change my age, erase my past, or guarantee that life would be easy. But if she was willing, I wanted to stop running from something good, simply because I was afraid other people might misunderstand it. Grace didn't give me a dramatic speech. She simply smiled, took one of the coffee cups, and made room for me at her kitchen table. That small gesture became the beginning of everything. We moved slowly. We attended church together, volunteered at the county food pantry, and spent Sunday afternoons restoring her father's old barn. My sister Claire questioned me at first, not cruelly but cautiously. Grace's friends did the same. Yet months passed, and people began seeing what we already knew. Grace didn't make me younger. She made me present, and I didn't rescue her from loneliness. I gave her a place where she never had to perform happiness to deserve companionship. A year later, I stood in that restored barn beneath simple white lights and asked Grace to marry me. My voice shook so badly that she laughed through her tears. I reminded her of the foolish sentence I'd once said on my porch. Then, I told her I finally understood something. Love wasn't asking me to be younger. It was asking me to be brave enough to show up at the age I was, with the heart I had, and the years still waiting ahead of me. Grace said yes before I finished. If Nathan and Grace's story touched your heart, please show this video some love. Share it with someone who may be afraid to believe in a new beginning, and subscribe if you want more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary hope. Sometimes your engagement helps a message of compassion and second chances reach the exact person who needs to hear it. And before this story ends, I have one special request. Please leave a comment and tell us this. Have you ever almost walked away from something beautiful because you were afraid of what other people might think? Your words may give courage to someone reading the comments tonight. I was 53 when I married Grace Parker on a bright September afternoon in Virginia. As we stood on the porch after the ceremony, she handed me a cinnamon roll and reminded me of the day I had said I'd marry her if I were younger. I laughed, pulled her close, and finally gave her the answer I should have given much sooner. I didn't need to be younger. I just needed to stop believing my best years were already behind me. Because sometimes, life doesn't knock on your door when everything is perfect. Sometimes it arrives carrying cinnamon rolls, smiles patiently at all your excuses, and waits for you to understand that a second chance is still a chance, and love is still love, no matter how late you finally become brave enough to accept it.